Hi guys, happy Wednesday, happy live, happy 1 month and 2 days until Christmas. It's probably gonna get crazy out there at the malls and in the parking lots, etc. I am going to do my normal this week, so I'm going to go over with you guys some happy news as well as the real estate updates, as well as answer some of your questions that have come in throughout the week. So we're going to get started with the first question right off the bat. Thank you guys again for tuning in. So the first question comes from Craig, and Craig is in Barrie. And again, feel free, if you've never watched this in the past, you can ask questions in the comments there, but if not, I'll just answer ones that have come in throughout the week, okay? So Craig from Barrie said, I have been contemplating selling for a few weeks, but have a pool, so I assume I should wait until next summer to sell it because it shows better. So thank you, Craig, for asking. To be honest, wait until next year because you've probably heard about interest rates. So it's supposed to be the lowest of the low, whether that will happen or not. I don't know, but it's supposed to be the lowest of the low next spring. So I would imagine you would get more now than next year. And that's basically what all the economists are saying. So I personally would not wait until next year. You could always show the house now, you know, what it's outside right now with snow, etc., the pool with the snow, and then maybe you have some pictures already of, you know, in the summer, this past summer, or maybe even when you purchased it, etc. So I wouldn't wait, but that is up to you. But thank you for asking. And again, if you've never watched this before, I jump around from questions and happy news, and then I do real estate in the middle, okay? But thank you guys for tuning in. So basically, a lot of people are worried, you know, with the interest rates and so forth, how are people going to be able to afford homes? So in Austin, Texas, they're doing things a little bit differently. So they're actually building, maybe you've heard before of 3D printed homes. So they're doing that, but they're actually doing 100 homes. So a whole subdivision, 100 homes of 3D printed homes, which is the largest that has ever been done at once. And the good thing about 3D printed homes is not only are they 30% cheaper, but the machines basically that do them can be 24 hours a day. So they go up faster and they're sturdier. So they're more, wind resistant, etc., tornadoes, hurricanes, etc., and water resistant, so flooding, etc. So they're better. And even though it's a machine, they do require people, but only 3 to watch each one. And so then it speeds up because obviously you only need 3 people and so forth. So that's why costs are less among a number of other reasons. But again, that's Austin, Texas. So they are doing 100 homes of 3D printed homes. I just thought it was cool. Obviously things change over the years, and that's not really happy news. It's just kind of real estate related. So I thought I would throw that in there. Next question comes from Claire. Claire is in Barrie. So I'm just going to see what Claire said. So Claire said, my neighbors on either side of me are building garden suites. I really think this is going to bring my value down, and I'm trying to talk them out of it. What do you think? I apologize, by the way, if you hear some squeaking. It is my dog who likes to play with his ball only at the time that I do lives and no other times during the day, only when I do lives. But thank you, Claire, for asking about the garden suites. So even though you're thinking it's going to bring your value down, and I get that it's not ideal for you to have like extra renters in the backyard over here and over there, etc. But if you were to sell, for example, then other investors would say, hey, I can rent out the house plus have the garden suites. So I get living there, it'll suck and, you know, bring your value down and your enjoyment, etc. But when you sell it, when they see the other ones, then they'll be like, oh, wow, we could do this. So that'll actually help your value. So anyways, hi, Margie. Thank you for popping in. Hi, Rob. Hi, Adria. Hi, Becky. And I think that's Janice. Thank you guys for popping in. My next good news thing before I get into real estate. So not really way that this one couple thought they were going to end their anniversary. So they were driving home from their anniversary, and this was in Idaho. So they saw a car basically go off the road and into the lake, and the wife called 911, and the husband pulled over, got out of the car, ran over, jumped into the water as the car was submerging down into the lake. And obviously it's freezing cold right now, etc. Turns out the woman was actually trying to take her life. And they both lived, so the man that got her, as well as the woman that was trying to take her life. And he said, I don't know you, but I love you, and everything will be okay. So I just like that. It was really sweet. You know, she has a second chance. She probably didn't want it right at first, but I'm sure in the future she will be very happy and thankful and grateful for them driving by that day. So I like that. Again, I like happy news. I don't like all negative news like news normally is. So the next thing, where am I here? The next thing is a question, and it comes from Tammy in Collingwood. So Tammy in Collingwood said, I do have a condo and don't understand how and why some freeholds sell for so much more money than mine and mine is far superior. Tammy, thank you for asking. To be honest, a lot of people in freehold, places feel the same about condos. So it just depends. So for example, I'm standing in a condo right now. I actually sold it, and some people are like, why would somebody pay that? Like, she doesn't have a basement, or I have more square footage than her, or I this or I that. And then other people are like, yeah, but it's turnkey and go, and she doesn't have to do the snow. And if the roof goes, she doesn't have to do it. And if the windows go, she doesn't have to do it. And she has a view and whatever. So it's basically just depending on what the consumer is willing to pay, right? Some people love a garage. Some people see it as somewhere to hoard all their stuff. Some people love a big property. Some people see it as maintenance and a lot of grass cutting or a lot of snow plow removal for their long driveway, etc. So everybody values things differently. So basically you can go off of solds and say, okay, these ones sold for this, so I can guess I might get around this, but until the buyer's actually willing to pay you for that and the money is in your account, we don't actually know what they're going to pay. And again, everybody's different of what they're willing to pay and what is really, valuable for them. So unfortunately, we can't say. I'm sure your place is beautiful, and I'm sure when you go to sell it, you will get exactly what you're asking for. But thank you for asking. I don't know why I'm all over the place today, but that's just the vibe. They're best friends in Aurelia, and basically the lady went into Shoppers Drug Mart, and I don't buy lottery tickets, but I guess she scanned it or something, and it said $1 million. So everybody's different. Some people might pay off their house or buy a new house or what have you. But this best friend couple, best friend for life or BFFs forever, they decided to give back to the community instead. And again, this is in Aurelia. So they just won this money. They've already given to Soldiers Memorial Hospital, the SPCA. They've given to the Farley Foundation, so they actually help low-income people pay for, their vets bills and their food and stuff, which is really cute. They've helped the Salvation Army as well as hospice, and the Comfy Cat Shelter. Obviously, they have a love for animals as well as people. And then one called Sharing Place, and it helps low-income families make sure they're getting fruit and vegetables. So I thought that was cool. I think I had one more question before... no, I didn't. I don't have one more question before real estate. I'm just going to do real estate. So basically, I will give you guys an update. Some weeks I say locally. Some weeks I do all of Ontario. Some weeks I do all of Canada. Some weeks I do a bit of, around the world, etc. But again, if you guys have questions, feel free to write in the chat. Otherwise, I will just blab on of what I'm planning to blab on for that day about. And just before I do the normal real estate stuff, just a reminder, we have a 1% listing commission as well as your home sold guaranteed. So if we don't sell it, we will buy it for cash, as well as if your home goes down in value and you have to sell it, that we will sell it for free. I know a lot of people are worried if there's a crash or correction, etc. So feel free to call the office at any time, 705-726-7000 about that. Again, 705-726-7000. So I'm going to get into the real estate, okay? Okay. So there was a new study, and basically it looked at just October 2022's numbers, okay? So this is not like, oh, it's an old study from 2017, it's not applicable, and it doesn't have the new interest rates or anything. So this is a study just done off of October stats, okay? Obviously November's not done yet, so it is just off of October stats, and they were trying to see where in Ontario has a balanced market, where has a seller's market, where has a buyer's market, okay? So basically in Toronto and two other places right close by, Mississauga and Brampton, are sellers markets. There are also 5 other places that are sellers markets in Ontario. Majority are up north except for Guelph. The other ones up north are Sault Ste. Marie, Thunder Bay, Sudbury, and North Bay, okay? And then the rest, which is the other 19 cities that they looked at and towns, are all in balanced markets. I know a lot of people right now think it's a buyer's market, but it's basically just because we're so used to it being a seller's market. It's not an actual buyer's market, it's just balanced. And that's why I tell a lot of people it's just back to normal. They're like, oh, it's crashed. I'm like, it's not crashed, it's just back to normal. Like, we didn't have all this craziness before you could offer conditional on finance, before you could offer conditional on inspection, before you could offer conditional on the sale of a home, etc. So it's just back into a regular market or balanced market, okay? The one place that they did say in all of Ontario that is a buyer's market right now is Niagara Falls. So supposedly in October in Niagara Falls, it was a buyer's market. So there you go. And besides the 3 main spots right around Toronto that are sellers markets, the reason they think those other 5 markets are sellers market is because of affordability, because of the high interest rates. Okay. So, and in case you guys don't know, the next possible chance that interest rates could go up That's December 7th, which is in a couple of Wednesdays from now. So basically prices around Ontario, I'm just going to tell you what the averages were in October just to give you an idea. Again, sometimes I do stuff about Ontario, sometimes I do stuff about just Barrie and Simcoe County, etc. But I just like to do a wide variety each week so it doesn't get boring, or maybe it's just because my attention span likes that better. So that's what I'm doing. So in Thunder Bay, the average, I don't do like comma, blah, blah. It's 309,000. It might be 462, but I just say 309, okay? So in Thunder Bay, the average sales price in October was 309. In North Bay, it was 400. In Sudbury, it was 436,000. In Vaughan, it was 1.251. In Orangeville, it was 781, which is pretty similar to Barrie. So Barrie was 733,000 average in October. In London, it was 630. In Windsor, it was 542,000. In Guelph, it was 810. In Waterloo, it was 714. In Hamilton, it was 782,000. In Milton, it was 1,031,000. St. Catharines, 582. Toronto was over $1 million at 1,093,000. Pickering was close to 1,981,000. Whitby also close to 1,991,000, so super close. Brampton, 1,003,000. Niagara Falls, 640. Mississauga, 987. Oakville was the highest, 1.487. Burlington, 1,060,000. Oshawa was 782. Ajax was 968. Kingston, if I could speak properly, Kingston was 636,000, their average sales price. Peterborough, 693. Ottawa, 624. And Richmond Hill, 1.317. Markham also above $1 million, 1,282,000. And Aurora was 1,363,000. And lastly was Newmarket, 1.124. So those are just the averages, okay, in October at many of these places. Hi, Josh. Hi, Sam. I can't see who that is. Becky, I think. And Todd, thank you guys for popping in. So another thing I was going to talk about is basically how Toronto and the GTA's market ripples into the rest of Canada. It's not like the month later, like, oh, if this happens in Toronto, then 1 month later it is this in the rest of Ontario and Canada, but just as in general, like how it goes, okay? But again, it takes time. It's not the next month or even 8 months later, but I'll just talk about that a bit. So basically, since the mid-2010s, it has been hard to live in Toronto for people, okay? So obviously there's not a lot of homes, and also the prices are high, so a lot of people move out of Toronto. But normally when they move out of Toronto, they move within an hour, okay? Just for commuting purposes. But since the pandemic, a lot of people can work from home. So the main things that people are doing are one of three. They're either moving far, far north, like Sudbury, etc., Thunder Bay, and so forth, because they're working from home and it's cheaper, or they're moving out east, Halifax, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, etc., PEI, or they're moving like Alberta and so forth, okay? So price-wise. So when I say west, I mean Alberta, I don't mean BC, okay? So that is what majority of people are doing since the pandemic, and I'll tell you how many people have left Toronto and that kind of thing as well. Okay, so for example, in 2019 and 2020, the number of people that moved from Ontario to Nova Scotia was 8,166, okay? And then in 2021 and 2022, and 2022 isn't even done yet, there is 15,862, so almost doubled. So 8,000 and change to 15,000 and change have moved from Ontario to Nova Scotia, okay? So obviously tons of people are moving, makes more sense money-wise, etc., especially as they can work from home. And we've had tons of clients do that as well. I've said a number of times back in the day, maybe 1 out of 500 clients of ours left province. Then it was maybe 1 out of 250. And then at the beginning of this year, I'd say it was 9 out of 10 were leaving province. And now I'd say it's about 8 out of 10 are leaving province, okay? And then thinking of Ontario moving to Alberta, okay? So from 2019 and 2020, there were 14,550 people that left Ontario, moved to Alberta. And then in 2021 and 2022, it more than doubled, and there was 29,422 people that moved from Ontario to Alberta. And this is the first time since 2014 that more people have gone to Alberta than left Alberta, okay? So that is something new that Alberta is experiencing and going through. And so basically what was happening in 2017 in Ontario is now happening in Alberta, Nova Scotia, etc. So for example, in Kitchener in 2016, the average sales price was $381,000. Then the very next year, the average sales price was $518,000, so it went up over 35%. So the average sales price right now in Nova Scotia is just about $499,000. So it's not quite as high as $518,000, but it was so much cheaper last year, right? So they're basically, like I said, it does take longer. Obviously that was about 5 years. It does take longer, but eventually it does happen there, just because there's only so many people that can live in Toronto. They move outskirts, and then that's still too expensive, etc. So then they move east or west, or leave the country altogether. So in the last year, 75,000 people have left Toronto, Peel, and York together, which is a crazy amount of people. And a lot of people in those areas are worried about the next generation. So they're saying, if nurses can't afford to live here, if teachers can't afford to live here, if good tradespeople can't afford to live here, then who's going to teach the kids, and so forth, right? Which does make sense, of course. So that is something that politicians, etc., often are saying in there, vote for me, that kind of thing. So for example, in the last election, all four parties were saying that they were going to add 1.5 million homes in the next decade to help with that. And now, one, is that actually possible? And two, do they have the infrastructure to make it possible with lots of people say the red tape, they have to cut out the red tape and so forth with zoning. So can that actually happen? That we'll find out in the next 10 years. So a lot of small towns around Ontario in the past, let's just say up by Sudbury, up by Thunder Bay, etc., they were closing down and amalgamating. So instead of having a little school in 5 different towns, they were having just one school because there weren't enough kids at the schools. And now those schools are reopening, and a lot of those schools even have portables because the schools are so busy with so many kids and families that have left Toronto that couldn't afford to buy, etc. So they've gone up north to buy. So that is something that is happening. A lot of people are also saying, hey, let's change retail spaces to housing, because obviously a lot of people are working from home. So say, for example, a call center or what have you, maybe they're working from home now or something like that. So they're saying, hey, let's allow these retail centers to change to residential properties and so forth, and allow them, instead of going through all these committees and so forth, just allowing them to do that. So there was a place in Calgary. It was a retail office building that was vacant, and they ended up turning it into 82 units. So that is something that they're looking into in other places. And in Ontario now, you're allowed to have 3 units on a single property, whereas before many times you're only allowed to have 1. So you could have the house, a basement apartment, and maybe a garden suite, etc. So that's something that's going on. Another thing that people are worried about is if the infrastructure of these smaller towns can, basically handle all of these people. So for example, in Ottawa, 5,500 people left in 2021 versus only 400 people leaving in 2015. And of those 5,500 people, majority of them stayed within 40 minutes of Ottawa. So are those places ready? Are the schools ready? Are the hospitals ready? Are the roads ready? Are there enough homes, etc.? Because then if they're not, then obviously it's a snowball effect. So then people won't be able to afford there either. And a lot of people are wondering if garden suites will help. So garden suites would be like in your backyard, you're building this little baby house, little small house, etc. Might have like a living room on the main floor, a bathroom, and then upstairs a bedroom or 2. So people are saying, hey, will garden suites help? So there was an appeal done in Toronto, and the Ontario Land Tribunal overturned that appeal and said, hey, you can still do it. So you still have to apply, and it still has to make sense. Like if your backyard's not big enough, or it's too close to the neighbors, or that kind of thing, they won't allow it. But they think there's about 300,000 to 600,000 homes in Toronto that will, be allowed to have these. Okay, so that is something, and that was as of July of this year. And also there's something called laneway suites. So I call them alleys because I grew up mostly in Hamilton, and there's a lot of alleys. So basically that started first in 2020. So like in these alleys, they allow you to have this little house in the alley. But then other people are like, hey, I don't have an alley, but can I still have this, little apartment or what have you? So then they started the whole garden suite thing. So there's laneway suites, or alley suites as I know them as, and then the garden suites at the back. In Toronto, on average, to build a garden suite, when you count your HST, all of the drawings and so forth, and your permit application, etc., it's about $500 a square feet, which is cheaper than the $1,000 a square foot, which is the average to get into a condo. So that's something different. Hi, Nikki. How are you? Hi, Bob. Thank you guys for popping in. Okay. So yeah, that 500 is cheaper than 1,000. So what else? So what are most people doing with these garden suites? Are people renting them out, or what are they doing? So it's about half and half, okay? So some people are renting them out. Some people are using them for their own purpose. So maybe their kids are going to live in the back because they can't afford to buy, or maybe their parents are going to live there because they're not ready to go to a nursing home yet and it just doesn't make sense, or so forth. They might have PSWs come in and help them out there, or the main family is moving from the house to the garden suite, and say they're older and then they're letting their kids and grandkids live in the original part of the house. So those are kind of common things that are happening with the garden suites. And then what are people doing with mortgage renewals? So some people obviously are selling because they can't afford it, and they're like, hey, my payment's going from $3,000 to $5,800 or $6,200 or whatever, depending obviously what they were locked in at before. Then other people are saying, hey, I will do locked in rate. So they're like, hey, I don't care if the variable goes up and down, etc. I just want to lock in. And so they're doing that because they're like, hey, if my payment goes up, I can't afford it to go up. So they're just locking in. And then other people are saying, no, I know that the interest rate is going to come down. So yes, it might go up a little bit, but I hate to be locked in at 5.75, for example, if it comes down to 3. So some people are doing the variable and some people are doing the fixed and locking in. So that is that. So Canada is one of the G7 nations, and so there's also the US in there, the UK, obviously Canada, France, US, I said US, Germany, Italy, and Japan, but Canada is actually the highest priced place to live in all of those G7 nations, which is crazy to me. I have not been to Japan except for a stopover, and I just thought they were really expensive, but maybe that's just in the main city, and then the rest are not as expensive, so I was surprised that they are super expensive. But anyways, Canada is the highest priced place to live, which is crazy, of all those places, and also our price to income. So basically the price that people are paying to live and then what our actual income is the highest to live there, not there, here, I should say, because obviously we're here. And then the second highest of the G7 nations is Germany to live in. Okay, so Canada is the highest and most expensive, and Germany is the second of the G7 nations, not in the world. I'll tell you some other ones later. And then in the past 5 years in Canada, the homes have gone up, housing prices, have gone up 48% higher than the income, faster than the income has gone up. And the most affordable places to live of the G7 nations, so the most affordable place is Italy, followed by Japan, then UK, then the US, and then lastly is Germany and Canada. So that's that. So obviously the market has cooled a little bit, but this has allowed more people to get into the market because homes that, for example, used to be $800 might be, say, $650 right now. So that makes more people able to afford them, but obviously the interest rates are higher, so they have to look at their monthly payments, etc. Canada also has the highest debt out of all the G7 nations, so we're not doing too well on that home front. However, we are not the worst in the world. Denmark and Norway are beating us for that. So that's that. The next question comes from, let's see, Josh and Becca, and Josh and Becca are in Barrie. So Josh and Becca say, we have been living in the same rental for 6 years, and the landlord just told us that her son is moving in. Does she have the right to do that, or can we stay? Thank you, Josh and Becca, for asking. It depends. To be honest, I get this question pretty regularly, but it depends if you guys are on a yearly lease or just month to month. So, for example, if you moved in for, back in the day, 6 years ago, and you signed a year lease and you've never signed one since, that just means you're month to month, and then she can give you the 60 days notice for her son to move in there. She cannot give you 60 days notice, for example, if her aunt wants to move in there or her best friend, okay? It does have to be her child, her spouse, her spouse's parents, her parents, or her. So it can't be an aunt or anything weird like that. If you are on a year lease, and for example, your year lease does not end until May 2023, she cannot get you out even though it's her son moving in. She can also not get you out if she sells. The only way you can leave is if you agree to leave, and most people who agree to leave because they're being bought out. So basically, the owner is giving them some kind of incentive to leave, okay? So it just depends on your situation. And if you have any other questions, feel free to message me outside of here, and I'd be happy to jump on a call with you. But thank you for asking, and hopefully you don't have to leave, because obviously, like, if you've been there 6 years. What else? So what can you buy for $418,000? Well, obviously not very much, but for $418,000, there was actually somebody who bought an entire village, which is crazy to me. And I love projects, so I probably would have bought it. But it is in Spain. It's 3 hours from Madrid near the Portugal border. And this property has been vacant for over 3 decades. It was right by an electricity plant back in the 50s, and that's when they built it, but then the electricity plant closed, and basically it became a ghost town and somebody bought it the early 2000s, but basically couldn't afford to fix it all up, because obviously you can imagine sitting vacant that many decades, it needs a lot of work. So then somebody now has purchased it, and they're guessing it's going to be $2 million to fix it up. I think it's going to be a lot more personally, unless it is cheaper to do things there than it is here, which is possible. But it has 44 homes and a school and a bar and a church and a 14-bedroom hotel, and they bought it for 418,000, 300,000 euros, which is about 418,000. So, anyways, I like a project, and that's just random news for you guys. Next question is from Rick, and Rick is in Beaton. So Rick in Beaton, what did he say? He said, in the past, I've refinanced my home to do renovations, but I'm coming up to a renewal now, and I just thought it doesn't make sense anymore. Do you think it makes sense? Thank you, Rick, for asking. So I think it makes sense if you do your homework. So if, for example, you're going to refinance, and let's just say your payment's going to go up $800 a month, okay? If you're going to use that money and you're going to build a garden suite, for example, like I was talking about before, or you're going to finish your basement and put a rental apartment in there, and you're going to rent it for $3,000 a month or whatever, then obviously it makes sense to spend that money. If you are going to refinance your house and take it to Casino Rama or go on trips with it, then I do not think you should refinance your house. But if you're going to do something that gives you passive income, then I do think it is still worth it. So I would just do your homework on that, and depending on what you're planning on spending the money on would be the answer to my question for you. Okay, thank you for asking though. Next thing was not just a regular drive into school for some kids in, where were they? In Georgia. So basically 6 high school students were driving into Georgia one day into school, and they were all 16 and 17. They were all football players, and they saw an accident on the side of the road, and they raced over, of course, and there was a lady that was pinned in, and they were able to pry the door open, etc. Not something they were planning on the way to football practice that day, but obviously the lady was super thankful, not knowing, you know, sometimes you see crashes and then cars blow up or something like that. So she was thankful, and again, I like happy stories, so that is that. Next question comes from Tom, and Tom is in Oro. So Tom said, I heat my house by propane and gas is coming onto the street. Do you think I should switch to it? Thank you, Tom, for asking. So to be honest, majority of people do like gas, but I do also know people that switch from gas to propane because they like that as well. But everybody's different. So some people say, I hate they just show up and fill my propane tank and I didn't ask them to, and I don't have the funds to pay them, and there was still, you know, a quarter in there or what have you, but everybody's kind of different. I personally wouldn't. You just leave it and you say, hey, there's gas available at the street and so forth. And if it comes down to it and somebody doesn't want to buy your home because of that, you could just say, hey, I'll knock off this amount of price, or I will hook it up for you before closing or something like that. But yeah, majority of people do prefer it, but if you don't have any, like you love your home the way it is, etc., at least it's on the street. It's not like I personally have paid for it to come down the street to me, and it was super expensive, and it was long before COVID, so it'd probably be a lot more expensive now, and I don't think it was worth it. And when I moved out, I did not know that I had to pay to unconnect it and what have you because the house was being torn down, which I did not know. I was like, can't you just cap it? And they couldn't cap it, so it was really expensive. I paid to get it to the house, and then had to pay to take it away, which I thought was excessive. And anyways, that's that. Next thing is, kicking butt is the U.S. basically for some things with homeless people. So they're basically right now targeting veterans, so people that have helped serve for the country, etc. And there was over 38,000 homeless veterans in the United States in February of this year, and now they have homed over 30,914 to be exact into permanent residences. And obviously that's great because there's lots of homeless problems throughout the world. And so they've taken care of 81.35% just in 1 year. So that's great. And basically Secretary Dennis McDonough, I can't read that, said they fought to defend our country, so they deserve a safe and stable home. So I like that. Again, I like happy news. And next question. Let me see, I lost my spot. Next question comes from, I lied, there is no next question. That was the end. Hope you guys have a super evening, a great remainder to your week, And again, I won't be here much longer because I am moving, so the lives will switch to a new location. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Be kind to one another, go after your dreams, believe in yourself, and encourage everyone. And I hope you have a super day. Take care, guys.